Welcome to Hidden Stories Healed Now. We have a great show for you today, and I have to tell you, it's one that is near and dear to my heart. And you might ask why. It's because it's an episode about a challenge that we all have been experiencing in the Black community. It is truly about our men and women in blue and our youth of Black young girls and boys, as well as older Black men and women. And the challenges that we've been experiencing, talking about this Black Lives Matter and why do police have so much in terms of power and control. So today, it's special because I have the opportunity to share this platform with some of the people that mean the most to me in my life. I have the opportunity to introduce to you my boo, my BFF, my rock, my husband, Harold Hamilton. Harold works for a global company, software company, and a director in services in that area, but he is also a very active member of the 100 Black Men of America. Next to him is my second heartbeat, and I'm proud to say of Brandon Hamilton. He is a graduate with his degree in management, and he's working at Buffalo Wild Wings, pursuing his interest in the food industry. And next to that, we have the person who's going to help us to get through this segment. It is Dr. Tinisha Parker. She is the one that's going to guide us and lead us through this conversation because it is so emotional. I know for me it is. Next to Tanisha, I have Stanley Savage, who is a veteran of the Atlanta Police Department for over 31 years. And as a Black officer, I know that he's had to face some challenges as well. So through this opportunity for us to have a conversation and to have a discussion, we're really going to talk about some of those impacts. So I want to begin talking a little bit about myself as a Black mother. You know, every time I have two grown men, unfortunately, my oldest son is quarantining as he is with his wife, getting ready to have my next grandbaby. So he's excused this time. But it's hard as a Black mother. They get ready, your children get ready to leave. Even when they're grown, you worry about when they walk outside of the door. Are you gonna come home safe? Are you going to be okay? Will you get pulled over? You're worried until they can walk in the door and you can hear them. It's one of those things as a parent that yes, I have faith. And Lord knows that if I didn't pray, it would be a whole lot worse. But I'm still human. And that anxiety of really trying to get through that emotion is hard. And knowing how to raise them, what do we say to them? How do we make this work? So Harold, I'd love to get your perspectives as a father and as leading a lot of young Black men from a mentoring perspective. What do you think are the challenges? What are you feeling as a husband and as a father?
You know, it's very difficult because along with Stan, we both are members of the 100 Black Men of America, and what we do is we mentor. So every week we're out there mentoring young African American males and trying to have this conversation. And time after time after time, I'm talking to them about someone that got hanged, someone that got beaten, someone that looks like them that's continually going through this process. And every time I have that conversation, it's like, well, Mr. Hamilton, why does this happen? And we go through the dialogue, we have the conversation, we help them understand what everyone did, what's right, what's not right. And then I find myself again, 2 weeks later, I'm having the same conversation over and over and over. And it's getting hard. It's very difficult. I mean, I was sitting down the other week thinking, okay, why am I going to tell my boys today because somebody got dragged out of the car and got beat? I mean, what do I tell them? So it's very difficult. One of the challenges that I see with them is there's a little bit of a naiveness. They don't necessarily think it can happen to them, even though they see it happening on television, but that's someone else. So the fact that they have that naiveness is a concern because you have to be vigilant out there, right? You got to be careful And so I try to help them understand what things to look out for, how to respect the authority figures that are in your life, that sort of thing, right? So helping them understand that. But on the flip side, and the part that feels really good is that I can see a maturation happening as some of our mentees get older. And so they start to get it. But the time from that naive point to when they get it, there's a whole lot of stuff that happens in there. And I see potential challenges and situations occurring because of that gap from being naive, going up from being what we see in society as a child to a teenager to a man. That teenager to man phase, that's a tough phase, and that's what we're trying to focus on. But it's concerning for me as a dad and as a mentor.
How do you deal with those emotions?
I continue to talk to my sons, because he actually went through the program, and I get reinforcement because as I went through that process of raising them, I raised my sons to be society and to behave and act as society kind of expects them to, because I wanted them to be successful. That results in being a little bit more rigorous sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. But the conversation that we have now is, Dad, thank you for some of those things. So I remember those, and I use that as fuel to go and talk to my current mentees aged 12 to 18 as I have those conversations. So I feel good that whatever conversations we had, whatever battles we had, we got through that. And I have two sons that are grown and mature and handling their business. And so I try to take that as fuel to continue to educate, to help other young men.
And I will tell you that, as we were raising both of our young men, one of the challenges is trying not to be too soft as a mother. And I appreciate one thing that my husband said to me. When they go out there in the world, they are not going to be nice to them. They're not going to act like everything is okay. We have to prepare them for what the real world looks like. We have to tell them what that means. So we're getting ready to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to hear from a young man's perspective to truly understand, what is he feeling? How does he feel about all the challenges that we're going through and moving forward? Be back in a moment.
Every story has a hidden element that is not often shared. Hidden Stories, Healed Now, with host Vicki-Wright Hamilton, seeks to share the hidden gems in real-life experiences. Our guests are ordinary people sharing their stories of overcoming insurmountable odds while providing hope and inspiration.
Okay, welcome back. We want to pick up where we left off from, and we really want to get the perspective from you, Brandon. As a Black young man growing up in society today, looking at all the things that you've been exposed to, from a young child till now, how do you feel about the men in blue, the women in blue? How do you feel about the challenges that we're facing in the Black community and that gap?
Well, to be honest with you, Mom, the respect for the men in blue is not there. There's a disconnect between the youth and the men in blue. We don't really understand their goals. There's no checks and balances with them. I personally have gone through instances dealing with them myself. And it's one of those things where it's hard because we don't really understand their purpose, From my understanding, it looks like all they do is beat up on us and shoot us and arrest us. I don't really see them coming into our communities, protecting us, helping us. Cops used to know everybody in the neighborhood. Now the cop doesn't even know anybody in the neighborhood. He didn't grow up out there. There's just a whole disconnect between the youth and the men in blue. And to be honest with you, I'm not personally fearful of being shot every single day, but I am concerned going out in the world every single day. And it's scary because I'm more concerned about being pulled over and shot by the police than I am about being robbed and killed. And so, that's just one of those things where it's like, That's concerning. So,
Well, you work hours that are late at night. And when you're coming home from work and you're in your car, are there thoughts or feelings that go through your mind from the time you leave work, coming home, and thinking about, your ride home? What is that feeling like?
so it's funny you actually asked that because it's kind of scary, to be honest, because my job requires me to be out till like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I actually had an instance of an example of basically I was getting off. I closed every single night one week, and I got pulled over every single day by the same cop. And I didn't really understand why. And he kept asking me the same exact question: where was I going? But he knew where I was coming from and where I was going. So it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, was he bored or did he just want to harass me? I don't know. He was not physical with me or anything like that, but he bothered me every single night. And it was just like one of those things where it's like, is it because you don't want me in this community? I don't know.
Very interesting. So, Stan, you represent the men in blue and women in blue for 31 years. And, working in the profession, how is it that the white officers and the other officers feel superior and you're still in a position to work with them as a teammate and to protect each other? How do you mentally go through that process in that environment?
So Vicki, I tell you, it's really concerning for me. Like Harold, in addition to and having worked with the Atlanta Police Department for 3 decades, I've mentored youth for 3 decades as well. I have 3 sons of my own. And I've always been an advocate that particularly those individuals in public service have to be held to a higher standard of accountability. And it's concerning because typically when you see these images in the media, and typically, it's news proliferated. Everybody's painted with the same brush. A lot of times when I talk to youth, I listen. I don't do a lot of talking because I could talk about black on black crime. I could talk about typically statistics would suggest that individuals, those same youth that we mentor, are typically not only the victims, but they're also sometimes the suspects associated with the crime. But nobody really wants to hear that, and so. But it's I think first and foremost, particularly now with some of the attention on this social justice pandemic as well, that I think that the law enforcement has to double down when someone stops a young man such as your son. That's bad for all the good cops as well, and so they have to double down and really in a more forceful way. Sometimes when if you're silent, you're complicit, and quite frankly, I've been stopped, I've been profiled myself, and I know the law, I know probable cause, I know all of those circumstances. What I would say is that what really kind of really motivated me through the number of years that I worked as a police officer is because I knew without a doubt that a number of the guys in my recruit class of 91, I won't say how far back that was, but my recruit class of 91, officers and individuals who I'd had opportunity to work with, to sweat with, to work with youth, to work on SWAT calls, work during the Olympics, all of that. We really came on the police department for one mantra that we found in the book of John. Greater love hath no man than this, than he would lay down his life for his friends. And that's really what motivated me and a number of my friends. But anytime there's even one officer that either goes rogue or facilitates some types of some of the situations that we've seen, obviously this year in particular, it really just does a disservice for individuals who have really tried to do the right thing. And so we really need to double down it's hard sometimes. It's just like family. Sometimes the hardest individuals that you want to got to hold accountable of those people within your household. Mm-hmm. And so I think that we have to do that because, quite frankly, if we don't, we'll continue to go down this road where, everybody will just take that brush and paint everybody the same way. Mm-hmm. And so, but again, it's disheartening. As Harold mentioned, nobody's tired. We, we just gotta, we gotta continue to really engage. I think the other thing too, we have to listen more to our young people, and not necessarily be dictators in terms of, say this is the way it needs to go and things of that particular nature. So.
Well, I appreciate that. I know that it's got to be difficult, and to hear that you've been profiled too means that you've gone through the experience. And I think that's what allows the opportunity for some listening to happen. So, Tanisha, before we take a break, I would love to begin the conversation around what are you hearing? What are you seeing? And how can we stop just having the conversation and really do something about it?
I think sitting here and listening to the perspective of a father, a son, and a former law enforcement officer of many years, I think it helps paint a really comprehensive picture of what some of the issues that really are systemic that are occurring in our society. We have a generation of youth who have a different understanding of authority, and that is a very healthy thing. I came up from a generation where you kind of did what you were told, you respected authority, you respected the position because the position was what it was. Mm-hmm. I think we've raised our children to ask questions, which is a good thing, but we've also got to equip them with several things, not only raise awareness within our children, but create agency within our children and the wherewithal to know when to act, when not to act, as well as the strategic ability to create action plans. So that's kind of my three-prong approach when I talk to parents and families and communities and students. You have to be aware, mm-hmm. you have to have agency, mm-hmm. and you have to act. Mm-hmm. So I would love to discuss more about that.
Well, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to ask Tanisha to really tell us a little bit more about the emotional side, how we can handle that. And then we're going to get some questions from our audience. We'll be right back.
Every story has a hidden element that is not often shared. Hidden Stories, Healed Now, with host Vicki-Wright Hamilton, seeks to share the hidden gems in real-life experiences. Our guests are ordinary people sharing their stories of overcoming insurmountable odds while providing hope and inspiration.
When we think about Hidden Stories, Healed Now, one of the things that is very obvious is that all of us have a journey. Everybody has challenges, trials, and tribulations. Whatever it is that you are experiencing, whatever challenge that may be, whatever hardship that you've gone through, those things that we keep in the closet that we never talk about, those hidden things keep us from being healed. We need to talk about them, even if it's with a trusted confidant. You need to deal with them, because what happens is that they stay with you anyway. It can affect your ability to move forward in any capacity in life. It can have impacts on your health. So one of the things that I always say, let the stories go. Let the emotions out. Let the conversations begin so that you can become healed, so that you can move forward. All you really want is that freedom, the freedom of not holding it back anymore, the freedom of not feeling it in the pit of your stomach, the freedom of not saying that, oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed. See, that's why we keep things in the closet. We either are embarrassed, we don't want anybody to know, it makes us feel bad, and no one wants to hurt. No one wants to be in pain. So talk about it. Find that thought partner, that confidant, that therapist, that person that allows you to be you and accepts you for who you are. So heal yourself by letting the things out. Okay, welcome back. Tanisha, talk to us a little bit more about the emotional impact and how do we deal with those emotions, right? Because we hide them.
And I've heard several. I've heard anger, I've heard frustration, confusion. And I think to address some of those, and they've come from different people. They've come from the parents on the panel. They've come from our young man. And a sense of maybe conflict also from our officer in terms of having been profiled by the same men and women that you are a part of professionally. So there are a lot of emotions that are involved in this situation, and I think you handle emotions in a way that first you bring and honor the emotion that you're feeling. All right, so you are angry, and you have shared some experiences with us that give you reason to be angry. You are fearful for your son, and we have all seen incidences on the TV, as well as some that haven't made the TV that we're aware of personally that give us reason to be fearful. I think we have to look within and determine, so what do? We become completely aware of what the issue is, and minority people, people of color, have a different awareness of the issue than non-minority people. So it's important to relate and get that information out and raise that awareness across levels. I think having community conversations with the police, I know we've reached out in my community to have a conversation with our local police precinct. There's no reason why not. There's not an issue right now. It's just let's have a conversation. Let's start the foreground of linkage with your community, because your comment was very poignant. A lot of our officers don't know the communities they patrol. They don't know the kids that they patrol. And so you said something that was really, that resonated with me, and it was, you don't know why the police exist. They exist in your mind to come after you. And I think that's what a lot of our youth believe. And so if there is something different, I think it is inherent upon our police agencies to tell us, what is your role in our community? We can provide that forum, we can come and attend, we can break that message down so that our youngest itty bitties to our young adults are able to understand components of that message. But why are you here in my community is a question that is a valid question of anyone that lives in that community, and it should be answered. In addition to awareness, creating that sense of agency within our students and within our children, I think will help alleviate some of the fear, because when you know what to do and how to act, you're better able to manage a circumstance. You may be a sassy teen. I was a sassy teen, but when you're pulled over may not be the time to be sassy. And I think equipping our young people with that understanding that there is a process, but they have to know that there's a process, because in the absence of them knowing that there's a process that they can follow to still have a conversation with officer so-and-so as to why did you pull me over, they think this is it, and I've got to get my point across now. And that getting the point across now often agitates the person who is in blue. Because regardless of whether that person is black or white, they're a person, and individuals have a hard time when their authority or is challenged or they feel that they are disrespected.
Okay.
My question is regarding law enforcement. To me, I know that there are great cops, because there's one sitting right here, but it feels like the greatest cops aren't represented. When there's clearly a grievous error, it feels like the institution of law enforcement backs up that particular grievous officer, like a fraternity almost, rather than really stand up and say what's right and do what's right. So to me, it just feels like kind of hopeless.
All right, so I guess in addressing that, I think first and foremost, I think some of our leaders, they have to really recognize the fact that there are some cultural issues, within that fraternity, if you will, really know the history of policing. I think it also goes back to accountability, and accountability starts at the top. And when I say the top, I'm talking about all the way from the president all the way down to your local police chief and their subsequent supervisors and managers. In President Obama's administration, we had a consortium of 21st century policing that kind of addressed a lot of these issues around accountability, the culture, training, hiring, you name it, where individuals really, we wanted to see a cultural change of more servant types of leadership and servitude as opposed to more of a dictator military type of platform. I think we need to continue to double down on those types of things in our culture. Again, I think there needs to be a quick resolution when there's something that is questionable to show that you're transparent. I think that just kind of harbors distrust, and quite frankly, lastly, I would say we need to hear those uncomfortable conversations and comments from individuals such as my new future leader here, Brandon. And now we may need to have a referee, we may need to have the doctor in there, the psychiatrist in there to kind of make sure we have great conversations. But we really have to start to looking at this whole issue through another lens.
Well, I think this has been a very interesting discussion. I appreciate all of my guests here today and all of their perspectives. I hope that you've gotten a few things that you can take back to your communities to try to help close this gap, and the conversations that you can continue to have to move forward. So if you'll join me in a round of applause of thanking my guest, I'd appreciate it. And we will see you on the next episode next week. Remember, Hidden Stories, Healed Now, gives you nothing but freedom because they're no longer hidden. Have a great day.